beings live 10,000 years according to earthly calculations. All the inhabitants are almost like demigods. They have the bodily strength of 10,000 elephants. Whoa. Indeed, their bodies are as sturdy as thunderbolts. The youthful duration of their lives is very pleasing, and both men and women enjoy sexual union with great pleasure for a long time. After years of sensual pleasure, when a balance of 1 year of life remains, the wife conceives a child. Thus, the standard of pleasure for the residents of these heavenly regions is exactly like that of the human beings who lived during the Trachea Yuga. Okay, so we have uh, the third period of time, Trachea Yuga. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are four yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. During the first yuga, Satya Yuga, people were very pious. Everyone practiced the mystic yoga system for spiritual understanding and realization of God. Because everyone was always absorbed in samadhi, no one was interested in material sense enjoyment. During Treta Yuga, people enjoyed sense pleasure without tribulations. Material miseries began in Dwapara Yuga, but they were not very stringent. Okay. Stringent material miseries really began from the advent of Kali Yuga. Well, that's our time right now. Another point in this verse is that in all eight of these heavenly varsas, although men and women enjoy sex pleasure, there is no pregnancy. Pregnancy takes place only in lower grade life. For example, animals like dogs and hogs become pregnant twice a year, and each time they beget at least half a dozen offspring. Even lower species of life, such as snakes, give birth to hundreds of young at one time. This verse informs us that in grades of life higher than ours, pregnancy occurs once in a lifetime. People still have sex life, but there is no pregnancy. In the spiritual world, people are not very attracted to sex life due to their exalted devotional attitude. Practically speaking, there is no sex life in the spiritual world. But even if sometimes it does occur, there is no pregnancy at all. On the planet Earth, however, human beings do become pregnant, although the tendency is to avoid having children. In the sinful age of Kali, people have taken to the process of killing the child in the womb. This is the most degraded practice. It can only perpetuate the miserable material conditions of those who perform it. Text 13. In each of those tracts of land, there are many gardens filled with flowers and fruits according to the season, and there are beautifully decorated hermitages as well, meaning houses. Between the great mountains demarcating the borders of those lands lie enormous lakes of clear water filled with newly grown lotus flowers. Aquatic birds such as swans, ducks, water chickens, and cranes become greatly excited by the fragrance of the lotus flowers, and the charming sound of bumblebees fills the air. The inhabitants of those lands are important leaders among the demigods, always attended by their respective servants. They enjoy life in gardens alongside the lakes. In this pleasing situation, the wives of the demigods smile playfully at their husbands and look upon them with their lusty desires. All the demigods and their wives are constantly supplied with sandalwood pulp and flower garlands by their servants. In this way, all the residents of the eight heavenly varshas enjoy, attracted by the activities of the opposite sex. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is a description of the lower heavenly planets. The inhabitants of those planets enjoy life in a pleasing atmosphere of clear lakes filled with newly grown lotus flowers and gardens filled with fruits, flowers, various kinds of birds, and humming bees. In that atmosphere, they enjoy life with their very beautiful wives, who are always sexually stimulated. Nonetheless, they are all devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as will be explained in subsequent verses. The inhabitants of this earth also desire such heavenly enjoyment. But when they somehow or other achieve imitation pleasures like sex and intoxication, they completely forget the service of the Supreme Lord. In the heavenly planets, however, although the residents enjoy superior sense gratification, they never forget their positions as eternal servants of the Supreme Being. Text 14. To show mercy to his devotees in each of these 9 tracts of land, the Supreme Personality Godhead, known as Narayana, expands himself in his quadruple principles of Vasudeva, Sankar's son, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. In this way, he remains near the devotees to accept their services. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this connection, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura informs us that the demigods worship the Supreme Lord in his various deity forms, Archa Vigraha, because except in the spiritual world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be directly worshipped in person. In the material world, the Lord is always worshipped as the Archa Vigraha deity in the temple. There is no difference between the Archa Vigraha and the original person, and therefore those who are engaged in worshiping the deity in the temple in full opulence, even on this planet, should be understood to be directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead without a doubt. Okay, that's good. As enjoined in the Shastras, Arche Vishnu Siladir Gurusu Naramati. No one should treat the deity in the temple as stone or metal, Nor should one think that the spiritual master is an ordinary human being. One should strictly follow the Shastric injunction and worship the deity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without offense. The spiritual master is the direct representative of the Lord, and no one should consider him an ordinary human being. By avoiding offenses against the deity and the spiritual master, one can advance in spiritual life or Krishna consciousness. In this regard, the following quotation appears in the Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Padme tu parama vyoma purvadye dik chatus staye vasudeva yado vyuhas chatvara katita kramat, and so forth. In the Padma quote in the Padma Purana, it is said that in the spiritual world, the Lord personally expands in all directions and is worshipped as Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The same God is represented by the deity in this material world, which is only 1/4 of his creation. Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are also present in the 4 directions of this material world. There is a Vaikuntha Loka coveted with, covered with water in this material world. And on that planet is a place called Vedavati, where Vasudeva is located. Another planet known as Vishnu Loka is situated above Satyaloka, and there Sankarsana is present. Similarly, in Dwarkapuri, Pradyumna is the predominator. On the island known as Svetadvipa, there is an ocean of milk. And in the midst of that ocean is a place called Airavati Pura, where Aniruddha lies on Ananta. In some of the Sattva Tantras, there is a description of the 9 varsas and the predominating deity worshipped in each. Number 1, Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Narayana, Nrsimha, Hayagriva, Mahavaraha. Number 9, Brahma. The Lord Brahma, mentioned in this connection, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When there is no fit human being to empower, to when there is no fit human being to empower as Lord Brahma, the Lord himself takes the position of Lord Brahma. Tatra Rama tu Vijnaya Purvokta Vidhaya Hari. That Brahma mentioned here is Hari himself. Text 15. Ilavrite, text 15 says, Sukadeva Goswami said, in the tract of land known as Ilavrita Varsa. The only male person is Lord Shiva, the most powerful demigod. Goddess Durga, the wife of Lord Shiva, does not like any man to enter that land. If any foolish man dares to do so, she immediately turns him into a woman. I shall explain this later in the ninth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Text number 16. In Ilavrita Varsa, Lord Shiva is always encircled by 10 billion maidservants of Goddess Durga. Wow. Who minister to him. The quadruple expansion of the Supreme Lord is composed of Vasudeva, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Sankarsana. Sankarsana, the fourth expansion, is certainly transcendental, but because his activities of destruction in the material world are in a mode of ignorance, he is known as Tamasi, the Lord's form in the mode of ignorance. Lord Shiva knows that Sankarsana is the original cause of his own existence, and thus he always meditates upon him in trance by chanting the following mantra. Sometimes we see a picture of Lord Shiva engaged in meditation. This verse explains that Lord Shiva is always meditating upon Lord Sankarsana in trance. Lord Shiva is in charge of the destruction of the material world. Lord Brahma creates the material world. Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva destroys it. Because the destruction is in the mode of ignorance, Lord Shiva and his worshipable deity Sankarsana are technically called Tamasi. Lord Shiva is the incarnation of Tamo Guna. Since both Lord Shiva and Sankarsana are always enlightened and situated in the transcendental position, they have nothing to do with the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. But because their activities involve them with the mode of ignorance, they are sometimes called tamasi. Text 17. The most powerful Lord Shiva says, O Supreme Personality of God, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you in your expansion as Lord Sankarsana. You are the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Although you are unlimited, you remain unmanifest to the non-devotees. Text 18. O my Lord, you are the only worshipable person, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the reservoir of all opulences. Your secure lotus feet are the only sources of protection for all your devotees, whom you satisfy by manifesting yourself in various forms. O my Lord, you deliver your devotees from the clutches of material existence. Non-devotees, however, remain entangled in material existence by your will. Kindly accept me as your eternal servant. Oh, that's a prayer right there. Text 19. We cannot control the force of our anger. Therefore, when we look at material things, we cannot avoid feeling attraction or repulsion for them. But the Supreme Lord is never affected in this way. Very important. Although he glances over the material world for the purpose of creating, maintaining, and destroying it, he is not affected, even to the slightest degree. Therefore, one who desires to conquer the force of the senses must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Then he will be victorious. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always equipped with inconceivable potencies. Although creation takes place by his glancing over the material energy, he is not affected by the modes of material nature. Because of his eternally transcendental position, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in this material world, the modes of material nature cannot affect him. Very important statement. Therefore, the Supreme Lord is called Transcendence, and anyone who wants to be secure from the influence of the modes of material nature must take shelter of him. Okay, text 20. For persons with impure vision, the Supreme Lord's eyes appear like those of someone who indiscriminately drinks intoxicating beverages. Ooh, that's not good. Thus bewildered, such unintelligent persons become angry at the Supreme Lord, and due to their angry mood, the Lord himself appears angry and very fearful. However, this is an illusion. When the wives of the serpent demon were agitated by the touch of the Lord's lotus feet due to shyness, they could proceed no further in their worship of him. Yet the Lord remained unagitated by their touch, for he is equipoised in all circumstances. Therefore, who will not worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Purport. Anyone who remains unagitated, even in the presence of cause for agitation, is called dhira, or equipoise. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being always in a transcendental position, is never agitated by anything. Therefore, someone who wants to become dhira must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita 2:13, Krishna says, Dhiras tatra namuyati. A person who is equipoised in all circumstances is never bewildered. Prahlada Maharaj is a perfect example of dhira. When the fierce form of Nishingadeva appeared in order to kill Hiranyakashipu, Prahlada was unagitated. He remained calm and quiet, whereas others, including even Lord Brahma, were frightened by the features of the Lord. Well, what's his name? Prahlada was able to recognize the Lord's in his severe, let's say, form. Prahlad was unagitated. He remained calm and quiet, whereas others, including even Lord Brahma, were frightened by the features of the Lord. Text number 21. Lord Shiva continued, all the great sages accept the Lord as the source of creation, maintenance, and destruction, although he actually has nothing to do with these activities. Therefore, the Lord is called unlimited. Although the Lord is an incarnation as Shesha holds all the universes on his hoods, each universe feels no heavier than a mustard seed to him. That's amazing. Therefore, what person desiring perfection will not worship the Lord? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Shesha or Ananta, has unlimited strength, fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. As described in this verse, Ananta's strength is so great that the innumerable universes rest on his hoods. He has the bodily features of a snake with thousands of hoods. And since his strength is unlimited, all the universes resting on his hoods feel no heavier than mustard seeds. Wow, that's amazing. We can just imagine how insignificant a mustard seed is on the hood of a serpent. In this connection, the reader is referred to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 5, verses 117 125. There it is stated that Lord Vishnu's incarnation as the serpentine Anantasesa Naga supports all the universes on its hoods. By our calculation, a universe may be very, very heavy, but because the Lord is Ananta, unlimited, he feels the weight to be no heavier than a mustard seed, which is completely insignificant as far as weight goes. Text 22 and 23. From that Supreme Personality of Godhead appears Lord Brahma, whose body is made from the total material energy. The reservoir of intelligence predominated by the passionate mode of material nature. From Lord Brahma, I myself am born as a representation of false ego known as Rudra. By my own power, I create all the other demigods, the five elements, and the senses. Therefore, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than any of us and under whose control are situated all the demigods, material elements, and senses, and even Lord Brahma and I myself, like birds, bound by a rope. Only by the Lord's grace can we create, maintain, and annihilate the material world. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Being. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A summary of creation is given in this verse. From Sankarsana, Mahavishnu expands, and from Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands. Lord Brahma, who was born of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, fathers Lord Shiva, from whom all other demigods gradually evolve. Wow. This is the genesis of creation. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Lord Vishnu are incarnations of the different material qualities. Lord Vishnu is actually above all material qualities, but he accepts control of Sattva Guna, the mode of goodness. to maintain the universe. Lord Brahma is born from the Mahatattva. Brahma creates the entire universe. Lord Vishnu maintains it, and Lord Shiva annihilates it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls all the most important demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, exactly as the owner of a bird controls it by binding it with a rope. Sometimes vultures are controlled in that way. Text 24. The illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead binds all of us, conditioned souls, to this material world. Therefore, without being favored by Him, persons like us cannot understand how to get out of that illusory energy. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who is the cause of creation and annihilation. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna clearly states in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Daivihi esa gunamayi, mama maya durukyaya, mam eva ye papadyante mayamitam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. End of quote. All conditioned souls working within the illusory energy of the Lord consider the body to be the self, and thus they continuously wander throughout the universe, taking birth in different species of life and creating more and more problems. Sometimes they become disgusted with problems and seek out a process by which they can get out of this entanglement. Unfortunately, such so called research workers are unaware of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and His illusory energy. And thus, all of them work only in darkness, never finding a way out. So called scientists and advanced research scholars are ludicrously trying to find the cause of life. They're not going to find that. They take no notice of the fact that life is already being produced. What will be their credit if they find out the chemical composition of life? All their chemicals are nothing but different transformations of the five elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:20, the living entity is never created. Najayate mriyate vahakadachan. There are five gross material elements and three minor material elements: mind, intelligence, and ego. And there are eternal living entities. The living entity desires a certain type of body, and by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that body is created from material nature, which is nothing but a kind of masculine machine, but a kind of machine handled by the Supreme Lord. The Lord gives the living entity a particular type of mechanical body, and the living entity must work with it according to the law of fruitive activities. Fruitive activities are described in this verse. Karma parvanim mayam. The living entity is seated on a machine the body, and according to the order of the Supreme Lord, he operates the machine. This is the secret of transmigration of the soul from one body to another. The living entity thus becomes entangled in fruitive activities in this material world. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.7, Mana samstan indriyani prakriti stani karsati. The living entity is struggling very hard against the six senses, which include the mind. In all the activities of creation and annihilation, the living entity is entangled in fruitive activities, which are executed by the illusory energy, Maya. He is exactly like a computer handled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh boy. And now there are computers. The so-called scientists say that nature acts independently, but they cannot explain what nature is. That's interesting. Nature is nothing but a machine operated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now we know what nature is. When one understands the operator, his problems of life are solved. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vahanam Janmanamante Gyanavanman Prapadyante Vasudeva Savamiti Sa Mahatma Pradurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. A sane man, therefore, surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus gets out of the clutches of the illusory energy called Maya. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Descent of the River Ganges. Chapter 18. The prayers offered to the Lord by the residents of Jambu Dwipa. In this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami describes the different varsas of Jambu Dwipa and the incarnation of the Supreme Lord worshipped in each. The predominating ruler of Bhadras Varsa is Bhadras Rava. He and his many servants always worship the incarnation known as Lord Harivilas. At the end of each kalpa, there's four ages, when the demon Anjana steals the Vedic knowledge, Lord Hayagriva appears and preserves it. Then he delivers it to Lord Brahma. In the land known as Harivarsa, the exalted devotee Prahlad Maharaj worships Lord Nrsingadeva. The appearance of Lord Nrsingadeva is described in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Following in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaja, the inhabitants of Harivarsa always worship Lord Nrsingadeva to receive from him the benediction of being engaged in his loving service. In the tract of land known as Ketu Mala Varsa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishikesha, appears in the form of Cupid, the goddess of fortune, and the demigods living there engaged in his service daily and night, manifesting himself in 16 parts. Lord Rishikesha is the source of all encouragement, strength, and influence. Excuse me. Lord Rishikesha is the source of all encouragement, strength, and influence. The conditioned living entity has the defect of being always fearful, but simply by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can rid himself of this defect of material life. Therefore, the Lord alone can be addressed as Master. An attractive land known as Ramyaka Varsa, Manu and all the inhabitants worship Matsya Deva. To this very day, wow, it's amazing. Matsya Deva, whose form is pure goodness, is the ruler and maintainer of the whole universe. And as such, he is the director of all the demigods, headed by King Indra. In Hiranmaya Varsa, Lord Vishnu has assumed the form of a tortoise, or Kurma Murti, and is worshipped there by Aryama, along with all the other residents. Similarly, in the tract of land known as Uttarakuru Varsa, Lord Sri Hari has assumed the form of a boar, and in the form and in that form he accepts service from all the inhabitants living there. All the information in this chapter can be fully realized by one who associates with devotees of the Lord. Therefore, in the Shastras, it is recommended that one associate with devotees. That makes sense. This is better than residing on the banks of the Ganges. In the hearts of pure devotees reside all good sentiments, as well as all the superior qualities of the demigods. In the hearts of non devotees, however, there cannot be any good qualities, for such people are simply enchanted by the external illusory energy of the Lord. Following in the footsteps of devotees, one should know that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only worshipable deity. Everyone should accept this proposal and worship the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Vedaischa sarvir aham eva vedya. The purpose of studying all Vedic literature is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. If, after studying all the Vedic literature, one does not awaken his dormant love for the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that he has labored for nothing. Wow. He has simply wasted his time, lacking attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He remains attached to family life in this material world. Thus, the lesson of this chapter is that one should get out of family life and completely take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Haribol. All right, text number 1. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, Vadrasrava, the son of Dharma Raja, rules the tract of land known as Vadrasva Varsa. Just as Lord Shiva worships Sankarsana in Ilavrita Varsa, Vadrasrava, accompanied by his intimate servants and all residents of the land, worships the planetary expansion of Vasudeva known as Hayashirsa. Lord Hayashirsa is very dear to the devotees, and he is the director of all religious principles. Fixed in the topmost trance, Vadrasrava Rasa and his devotees offer their respectful obeisances to the Lord and chant the following prayers with careful pronunciation. Harivilas. Bhadras Shravasa Uchu. Om Namo Bhagavate Dharmyatma Visodhanaya Nama Iti. Okay, this is the mantra. Translation. The ruler, Vajrasrava, and his intimate associates utter the following prayer. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of God, the reservoir of all religious principles, who cleanses the heart of the conditioned soul in this material world. Again and again, we offer our respectful obeisances unto him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Foolish materialistic persons do not know how they are being controlled and punished at every step by the laws of nature. They think they are very happy in the conditioned state of material life, not knowing the purpose of repeated birth, death, old age, and disease. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 7.15, Lord Krishna describes such materialistic persons as muda, rascals, namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradama. These mudas do not know that if they want to purify themselves, they must worship Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, by performing penances and austerity. This purification is the aim of human life. This life is not meant for blind indulgence and sense gratification. In the human form, the living being must engage himself in Krishna consciousness to purify his existence. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam sudayat. This is the instruction of King Rishabhadeva to his sons. In the human form of life, one must undergo all kinds of austerities to purify his existence. Yasmad Brahma Sokyam Pranantam. We are all seeking happiness, but because of our ignorance and foolishness, we cannot know what unobstructed happiness really is. Unobstructed happiness is called Brahma Sokyam, and Brahma Sokya, spiritual happiness. Although we may get some so-called happiness in this material world, that happiness is temporary. The foolish materialist cannot understand it. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaja points out, Maya Sukaya Brahman Bharam Udvato Vimudhan. Merely for temporary materialistic happiness, these rascals are making huge arrangements, and thus they are baffled life after life. Text number 3. Alas, how wonderful it is that the foolish materialist does not heed the great danger of impending death. He knows that death will surely come. Yet he is nevertheless callous and neglectful. If his father died, he wants to enjoy his father's property. And if his son dies, he wants to enjoy his son's possessions as well. In either case, he heedlessly tries to enjoy material happiness with the acquired money. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Material happiness means to have good facilities for eating, sleeping, sexual intercourse, and defense. Within this world, the materialistic person lives only for these four principles of sense gratification, not caring for the impending danger of death. After his father's death, a son tries to inherit his money and use it for sense gratification. Similarly, one whose son dies tries to enjoy the possessions of the son. Sometimes the father or of a dead son even enjoys his son's widow. Oh my God, what a terrible thing. Materialistic persons have in this way, sorry, materialistic persons behave in this way. Thus, Sukadeva Goswami says, how wonderful are these pastimes of material happiness transacted by the will of the Supreme Personality of God. In other words, materialistic persons want to commit all kinds of sinful activities. But without the sanction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one can do anything. Why does the Supreme Personality of Godhead permit sinful activities? Okay, now that's a real good point. The Supreme Lord does not want any living being, to act sinfully. And he begs him through his good conscience to refrain from sin. But when someone insists upon acting sinfully, the Supreme Lord gives him the sanction to act at his own risk. Matak smriti jnanam apahanam cha. No one can do anything without the sanction of the Lord. But he, meaning the Lord, is so kind that when the conditioned soul persists in doing something, the Lord permits the individual soul to act at his own risk. According to Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, sons always outlive their fathers in other planetary systems and other lands in this universe, especially Swargaloka. However, on this planet Earth, a son often dies before his father, and the materialistic father is pleased to enjoy the possessions of his son. Oh my God. Neither the father nor the son can see the reality that both of them are awaiting death. When death comes, however, all their plans for material enjoyment are finished. Text number 4. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world. And they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Not only does the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but sometimes it also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the constitutional position of this material world through realization. As soon as someone thinks, I am this body, aham mameti, and everything in relationship with this body, with this material body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion caused by material energy acts especially on the conditioned souls, but it sometimes also acts on the liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of the material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mam eviye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. We have already seen an example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharata. Maharaj Bharata was undoubtedly a great devotee, but because he turned his attention slightly toward a small deer, he had to suffer two more births, one as a deer and another as the Brahmana Jata Bharata. Afterward, he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee. Now that's a good thing. That shows that the Lord is very kind. But if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. Very important statement. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. Yeah, so we should always have seva, devotional service. A a person who is lazy will eventually fall down. But a devotee who is always engaged in the service of the Lord will not be attracted by Maya or will not be fooled by Maya's tricks. Text number 5. O Lord, although you are completely detached from the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material world, and are not directly affected by these activities, They are all attributed to you. We do not wonder at this, for your inconceivable energies perfectly qualify you to be the cause of all causes. You are the active principle in everything, although you are separate from everything. Thus, we can realize that everything is happening because of your inconceivable energy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so we will stop right there, my dear devotees. Are there any questions? Are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Don't hesitate. You only learn by asking questions. Okay, there are no questions. Therefore, our takeaway for today. One second. I'll do something. One second. Our takeaway for today is the following. O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world, and they preach the truth as well. Yet, even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. And in the purport, it says, not only does the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but sometimes it also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the constitutional position of this material world through realization. As soon as someone thinks, I am the material body, I am this material body, aham lameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion caused by the material energy acts especially on the conditioned soul, but it sometimes also acts on liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of the material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mam ivaye pragnante mayam itam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of the material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. That's a very important statement. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, that's the main takeaway. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. This is our takeaway for today. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. We have already seen an example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharata. Yeah, he became attached to a deer and ruined his whole spiritual life. Maharaj Bharata was undoubtedly a great devotee, but because he turned his attention slightly, I like that, slightly, toward a small deer, he had to suffer two more births. Oh, wow. One as a deer and another as the Brahmana Jada Bharata. Afterward, he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee. I'm not saying that, that's wonderful. But if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas, is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. This is our takeaway for today, my dear devotees. And we should take these statements very seriously if we want to be a bona fide devotee and not be enticed by Maya's tricks. And believe me, Maya has many, many tricks. But the devotee is not interested in Maya's tricks. But most people who have no spiritual life are life after life tricked by Maya's tricks and remain prisoners of Maya. Okay, well, I think we will stop right there in that note and pray to Krishna with our ardent love and devotion to protect us from falling down and being victims of Maya. And how to do that is to constantly be chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and be very meek and humble, but determined to always follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees. With the association of devotees, we are guaranteed not to fall down if we are honest devotees and take advice from our advanced devotees whenever we are confused about something. So, by asking questions and hearing the answers, we make spiritual advancement and we can be saved from being attracted to Maya's tricks. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna and be happy and do not become a victim of Maya's tricks. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions or answers? Any questions or comments?
Hi Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have a quick question.
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj. They say the material world is part of Krishna's material and spiritual energies. So I find that a little bit confusing. Can you expand on that? Thank you.
You're only confused a little bit?
And not a lot.
Okay.
Thank you.
Look, the Lord is the master of all energies. So, uh, it says in what we read today, not only does the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but sometimes it also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the conditional position of this material world through realization. Wow, that's a real serious statement. Even very advanced, let's say, scholars who understand the constitutional position of the material world through realization, they also sometimes come under the influence of Maya. And why is this? And the answer is it follows. As soon as someone thinks, I am this material body, Ahamameti, and everything in relationship to this material body is mine, he is an illusion or moha. Moha means illusion. This illusion caused by the material energy acts especially on the conditioned soul. Conditioned souls. What does that mean, conditioned souls? They're still attracted to Maya. They're still attracted to sense gratification. They're still attracted to becoming famous or powerful or uh, a controller of others. So, therefore, it says, as soon as one thinks, I am this material body, aham mameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion or moha. Moha means illusion. Thus, illusion caused by the material energy acts especially on the conditioned souls, but it sometimes also acts on liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Yeah, we can become inattentive, not being very, very cognizant of the dangers of Maya and the material world. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mam evaye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of the material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. There it is. That's our main takeaway for today. No one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following the regulative principles. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's our takeaway for today. We have to rigidly uh, follow the regulative principles given to us by Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas. If we rigidly follow, Maya will not have the power to trick us to fall down into sense gratification. So that means we have to always go to sleep early, wake up early, chant our rounds very nicely, not in a, let's say, devious way where we're thinking of 10 different things while we're chanting. Our focus should be completely on chanting purely the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, inattentiveness is the reason why people fall down, not paying attention. And that's why it says a little inattention will create havoc. And we have already seen an example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharata. Maharaj Bharata was undoubtedly a great devotee, but because he turned his attention slightly toward a small deer, he had to suffer two more births. One as a deer and another as the Brahmana Jad Bharata. Afterward he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The main statement here is the Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. In other words, one has to be very rigidly, very, let's say, uh, regulated in following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, always staying in the association of devotees, and always engaging in devotional service. Okay, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Which verse is Canto 5, Chapter 18, and verse number 4. It's very important verse, and the purport is absolutely essential if we want to be careful about practicing Krishna consciousness and not falling down to Maya's by and not falling down by Maya's tricks. And here it says, in other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. That is our takeaway for today. And that is Canto 5, Chapter 18, verse number 4, and the last sentence, or the last couple of sentences. It is very significant, and that is our takeaway for today. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. Now we know why devotees fall down. There it is, even very good devotees. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. We should never be inattentive in the practice of Krishna consciousness. We should always be in the association of advanced devotees. And uh, we should, as it says here, not take advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commit mistakes again and again. The Lord will certainly punish the devotee by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. Okay. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please have a good day today. Please take this statement in Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 4. Read this verse and purport several times today and let it sink into our mind and become our, let's say, takeaway for today. Very seriously understand what is being said in this verse. Canto 5, Chapter 18, text number 4. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol. Haribol.